I've said it once and I'll say it again. Republicans use poverty as a political tool. To absolutely no one in America's surprise, Florida is in a recession. Duh. Their whole MO is showing up, kissing the babies, taking pictures with little John, promising you all these things, then disappearing faster than affordable housing in Miami. They don't build systems, they stage gateways, and they don't build safety nets, they stage photo ops. And people in red states keep falling for it because they really have it in their mind that these crumbs are blessings. No, crumbs are fucking crumbs. And while single moms in Florida are literally working 3 jobs just to pay rent, Republicans are out here cashing $50 million checks. You're not being led, you're being exploited. Yeah. So do your fucking homework next time.
Good morning, Florida. Did you know that Florida is number 2 in the U.S. with financial distress in regards to resident debt obligation? This is according to MoneyWise, Wallet Hub, Yahoo Finances, and Forbes. According to Florida Politics, the state saw a 23% increase in distressed bank accounts between 2024 and 2025. Florida is the 6th highest overall distressed accounts at 7.3%. And what does that mean for Floridians? Well, it just means a sharp increase in bankruptcy, forbearance, and student loans, lowest credit scores ever, and now compounded with the fact that you have to pay higher prices for groceries, rent, gasoline, and let us not forget healthcare, and especially if Obamacare subsidies is to discontinue. Although Florida's economy is strong with a GDP at 1.7 trillion, that is not trickling down. And now they're predicting that it's going to slow down. According to the Florida Realtor report that as of mid-2025, a family of 4 in Florida needs an annual income of $217,651 to live comfortably. And according to Nielsberg, as of 2023, the average income in the state of Florida was $71,711. That's a big difference. Huge. Recession is happening. And guess what? Most of it is self-created crisis by the Republicans. It is driven largely by the mix of slowing immigration, increasing tariffs, and cutting federal jobs. I hope Floridians take note of this and show their frustrations at the polls. This is why elections matter. You guys have a blessed day.
Florida's losing $31 billion in tourism. Beaches are empty. Hotels are struggling. Canadians aren't coming. International visitors are staying home. And business owners can't figure out why. Here's why. When you spend years building your political brand on fear, bigotry, and attacking the very people who spend money in your state, immigrants, tourists, LGBTQ folks, they stop showing up. Shocking, right? This isn't complicated. You made your state hostile. People felt unwelcome, so they left, and they're not coming back. Today we're breaking down how Florida turned paradise into a cautionary tale, how MAGA politics destroyed an economy, and how the people who voted for this are now begging for the customers they scared away. Welcome back to Mind Mirror. Let's get into it.
America is facing a tourism crisis. We are set to lose $31 billion just in 2025 in tourism alone. But wait, it's getting worse. Did you know the government shutdown is what affects travel and the economy? We lost $3 billion a week, mostly in tourism, when the government was shut down in 2018. $3 billion a week in tourism. Travel canceled, money not spent. I want to remind you that Canadians spend $20 billion a year in the United States, and they are boycotting the USA. That would have created 140,000 jobs. Yes, tourism creates jobs. Tourism stimulates the economy. Tourism is number 1 in Las Vegas. Many other states, tourism is a huge part of the economy. Trump is tanking tourism and the United States. Tell me I am wrong.
Here's what people don't understand about tourism. It's fragile. Once you lose it, you don't just snap your fingers and get it back. Tourism runs on reputation, on people feeling welcome. The numbers tell the story. Canadians spend $20 billion annually in the U.S. That's 140,000 jobs. And they're not coming anymore. Government shutdowns cost $3 billion a week in lost tourism. Not abstract numbers. Actual businesses closing, actual workers laid off. And the response? Double down on policies that make people feel unwelcome, create chaos, make the whole country look unstable. You can't insult half the world and expect them to still vacation here. They'll go to Mexico, to Europe, to Canada, and once they build new travel habits, they're not coming back. Tourism is tanking, and the people who cheered for these policies are learning that economics doesn't care about your politics.
Hey folks, it's Joe from Georgia. Well, some more people are finding out that maybe they screwed up this past year in the election. And I'm going to talk about the state of Florida. As you know, you hadn't heard as much from Ron DeSantis lately because he's in trouble about maybe directing $10 million worth of money that wasn't his into his campaign accounts and all over the place. Oh, his wife is the one who's doing it though. But what Florida is finding out in voting for Donald Trump, they're seeing the largest decline in the price of homes in Florida in 13 years. There's more homes on the market than there have been in decades. Those prices are falling, and people are learning that a lot of folks, even though they liked Florida, they didn't want to come in the pretense of only supporting one man. The Canadians have left. We have a ton of folks that had retired there. They're moving to other states. And what's the funniest part is, Florida folks, there is a net positive people moving from Florida to the state of California, which has always been victimized by Ron DeSantis.
Florida beaches are empty because racism don't pay the bills. Now, those beaches and businesses are empty in Florida, and the business owners are scratching their head. They're like, I don't understand what's happening and why this is going on. This is what happens when you build your entire platform on bigotry and fear.
Cause and effect. That's all this is. Florida spent years attacking immigrants, the same people who work in hotels, cook in restaurants, keep the tourism machine running. You harassed them, made their lives miserable, and now those businesses are empty. But here's what's really wild. DeSantis went after Disney, the biggest economic driver in the entire state, tens of thousands of jobs, billions in revenue. He picked a fight with the golden goose for political points. And what happened? Housing market crashed, prices falling at rates not seen in 13 years. People are leaving Florida, even retirees are moving out. There's actually net positive migration from Florida to California now. People are choosing California over Florida. You built your platform on division and hatred, and now you're shocked people divided themselves from you. This is basic economics wrapped in consequences.
When you spend years attacking immigrants, the very people who visit your state, spend money in your hotels, eat at your restaurants, buy your tacky-ass beach tiles, don't act shocked when they stop showing up. And understand, it's not just tourists who aren't coming to Florida. When you squeeze the working class like a lemon, there is no juice left for joy. You think people got beach money right now? People can't even afford to go outside. And all those Trump tariffs, those weren't on corporations. Those were Trump taxes on us. Prices went up, jobs got cut, and now folks are choosing between groceries and gas, not plane tickets to Clearwater. And y'all made Florida a hostile environment, honestly. And not just for immigrants, but also for black people, LGBTQ, teachers, hell, even librarians. Y'all made the beach a battleground. So now it's just you and those overpriced souvenir stands collecting dust.
Listen to what they're saying. Florida didn't just lose tourists. They made the entire state uninviting. And Florida systematically made entire groups feel unwelcome. Immigrants, black people, LGBTQ folks, teachers, librarians. Now business owners stand in empty restaurants wondering where everyone went. Let me break down basic economics. Discretionary spending requires two things, money and motivation. Right now, people have neither. Tariffs raised prices, jobs got cut, wages stayed flat, so people are choosing between groceries and gas, not beach vacations. But even if they had the money, why spend it in a place that treats them like enemies? Conservative policies don't just hurt feelings, they destroy economies, they kill businesses. Florida is the case study. And every business owner who voted for this is learning that lesson the hard way.
And now conservative business owners are mad. But they're mad at the consequences of the policies that they voted for. Baby, this ain't karma. This is cause and effect. Conservative policies destroy communities, period. So ask yourself, How long are you guys going to continue to vote against your own business?
Republican woman is in shock because she showed up at the hospital in Florida with an ectopic pregnancy and they told her they couldn't help her because of the law, just like we said that they would. So she was so upset she called the governor because, of course, when you're in the middle of a medical emergency, you want to call a politician. But he didn't pick up the phone. And how many women have their governor's number on speed dial? So after several hours of begging and pleading for them to help her like we said they'd make you do, they finally let her end the ectopic pregnancy before her fallopian tubes burst and she lost all ability to reproduce. And yet, she's trying to blame this on Democrats. But we said that when you showed up at the hospital, they wouldn't ask you who you voted for or what party you belong to, and they wouldn't ask you what your interpretation of the bill was. They were just going to go by the law. So her care was delayed. I'm very happy she got the care that she deserved, but it was delayed. And there are other women out there whose care is being delayed. And that is putting their lives at risk and their reproductive health care at risk.
This is where policy meets reality, and reality is brutal. A woman has an ectopic pregnancy, a medical emergency that will kill her if not treated. She shows up at the hospital, and they make her wait for hours, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're terrified of the laws Republicans passed, and she's blaming Democrats, the party that fought against these laws, the party that warned this would happen. These abortion bans don't have functional exceptions. Doctors are paralyzed by vague language and severe penalties, so women sit in emergency rooms, bleeding, dying, while hospitals call lawyers. This is happening right now in Florida, in Texas, in every state with these laws. And the people who voted for this are finding out these laws don't care who you voted for. They just hurt everyone. Laws have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are life and death.
Donald Trump has just announced reparations for white people, for white boys and men. He thinks that our education system is catering too much to girls and people of color. He wants the Department of Justice to go after our schools. And
So it looks like some Florida beach community businesses are struggling with a lack of summer tourism. And it looks like they can't seem to figure out why.
For us either. I don't know if it's the hurricane, the economy, a mix of the two, but we've definitely been, everybody around here that I spoke to has been down about 30%.
But, I have a couple of ideas as to why this is possibly happening. I'm gonna venture a guess and say that it has something to do with that happened back in November of 2024. I mean, our Canadian neighbors from the north are cutting back on traveling to the US. And even other international visitors are cutting back on traveling to the US because of political tensions. And it looks like spending from international visitors is looking to drop by $8.5 billion this year, as estimates show. Also, people have less disposable income because of rising cost of food, as well as bills and everything else. We're already seeing this in like Las Vegas, but Las Vegas is just expensive in general too because of all of the extra fees that they like to tack on. But I guess I could classify this as a fuck around and find out tourism edition.
Hurt, and he doesn't know when to back off. He just keeps doubling and tripling down. But here's my question, Florida. You chose Ron DeSantis as your governor. Where does Florida make their money? From tourism. I mean, Disney is probably their biggest attraction. So you've got a governor destroying Disney and making it unappetizing for anybody to go down there. How long is it going to be before Florida is just fucking destitute? Because the one business you have, your governor is trying to destroy. If you voted for Ron DeSantis, you got some fucking explaining to do because you're voting against your own personal well-being, your financial well-being.
The paradox is stunning. Business owners in Florida voted for someone who actively destroys their industry, then stand around confused when their industry gets destroyed. DeSantis attacked Disney, Florida's economic backbone. He passed laws that scare tourists away. He created a hostile environment for workers, and people voted for him, twice. Here's what needs to be understood. Tourism is voluntary. People choose where to vacation. They have unlimited options, and they're choosing anywhere but Florida, not just because of hurricanes, but because Florida has become synonymous with book bans, abortion restrictions, attacks on teachers, and culture wars. You cannot campaign on hatred and expect people to show up with their wallets open. So to every business owner losing money right now, this is what you voted for. These are the direct consequences. Complaining won't fix it. Only changing course will.
I'm troubled by what's going on in Florida because I do love this.
Florida is now experiencing a complete collapse. over the next 3 years, you will see housing prices on the East Coast and the West Coast and the south of Florida drop 30 to 40% over the next 3 years. It's that dire in Florida. And what's causing it all? People are moving out. People simply can't afford to live in Florida. And many people can't afford to fix their homes from the latest storms. It's only going to get worse. If you have property to sell in Florida, you better hurry. You better aggressively get it done. Because over the next 3 years, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to make the 2008 crash look like a picnic. So what is going on right now? You're seeing mass exodus of people leaving Florida in droves because it's simply not affordable. Insurance is too high. HOA is too high. Everything is too high. And even with the prices coming down, it's not going to matter. Nothing is going to save Florida at this point except for a 30 to 40% drop because it's just too expensive to live there. And,
So a Republican woman is in shock because she showed up at the hospital in Florida with an ectopic pregnancy and they told her they couldn't help her because of the law, just like we said that they would. So she was so upset she called the governor because, of course, when you're in the middle of a medical emergency, you want to call a politician. But he didn't pick up the phone. And how many women had their governor's number on speed dial? So after several hours of begging and pleading for them to help her like we said they'd make you do, they finally let her end the ectopic pregnancy before her fallopian tubes burst and she lost all ability to reproduce. And yet, she's trying to blame this on Democrats. But we said that when you showed up at the hospital, they wouldn't ask you who you voted for, what party you belonged to, and they wouldn't ask you what your interpretation of the bill was. They were just going to go by the law. So her care was delayed. I'm very happy she got the care that she deserved, but it was delayed. And there are other women out there whose care is being delayed. And that is putting their lives at risk and their reproductive health care at risk.
Good morning, Florida. Did you know that Florida is number 2 in the U.S. with financial distress in regards to resident debt obligation? This is according to MoneyWise, Wallet Hub, Yahoo Finances, and Forbes. According to Florida Politics, the state saw a 23% increase in distressed bank accounts between 2024 and 2025. Florida is the 6th highest overall distressed accounts at 7.3%. And what does that mean for Floridians? Well, it just means a sharp increase in bankruptcy, forbearance, and student loans, lowest credit scores ever, and now compounded with the fact that you have to pay higher prices for groceries, rent, gasoline, and let us not forget health care, and especially if Obamacare subsidies is to discontinue. Although Florida's economy is strong with a GDP at 1.7 trillion, that is not trickling down. And now they're predicting that it's going to slow down. According to the Florida Realtor report that as of mid-2025, a family of 4 in Florida needs an annual income of $217,651 to live comfortably. And according to Nielsberg, as of 2023, the average income in the state of Florida was $71,711. That's a big difference. Huge. Recession is happening. And guess what? Most of it is self-created crisis by the Republicans. It is driven largely by the mix of slowing immigration, increasing tariffs, and cutting federal jobs. I hope Floridians take note of this and show their frustrations at the polls. This is why elections matter. You guys have a blessed day.
Waving a gun at people while driving by a No Kings protest in Myrtle Beach this weekend is now out on bond.
Mary Moriarty of Surfside Beach drove by the demonstration waving a gun. She has been charged with pointing and presenting a firearm.
59-year-old Mary Moriarty of Surfside Beach with 2 counts of pointing and presenting a firearm. Officers claim she admitted to driving by the No Kings demonstration at Chapin Memorial Park around 2 in the afternoon yesterday and began waving a gun at 2 people who were attending that rally. If convicted, she could face up to 10 years in prison.
An estimate of 1,000 people took part in the event, which was held at Chapin Memorial Park.
Alligator Alcatraz, breaking news. Alligator Alcatraz, Florida receives a $608 million disbursement reimbursement from FEMA from September 30th, supposedly before the government shutdown, for Alligator Alcatraz. This is huge. This is huge in a couple of reasons. Number one, the government shutdown. Number two, this is coming from FEMA's Shelter Emergency in Place Fund, which has nothing to do with Alligator Alcatraz. And number three, this now triggers back federal funds coming into the state of Florida, which is why they did not fall under the environmental rules that they had to do all of these different requirements up front for Alligator Alcatraz to be approved. So this is going to go back and trigger the reason. Basically, they were protected because they said, well, it's all state, so if it's not state, it doesn't trigger this.
Hey, if you're coming to Florida and going to the resorts and stuff, you're probably getting scammed. Let me tell you what happened to me and what to keep an eye out for. I was at a resort with my family in Orlando, and I went up to the bar so that I could get us some drinks. And I ordered verbatim a margarita, one of the drinks off the list, and then a Bloody Mary. The bartender said, bet. Made the drinks, gave me my bill. Now, first of all, the thing you need to look out for is a lot of places are doing auto gratuity. So make sure before you just write in the tip that you're actually looking and seeing if it says auto gratuity already applied so that you're not double tipping. Unless you really want to, but I'm just saying look out for that. Second, I'm looking at my receipt and I see that it says $18 for a margarita and I'm like, really? Just like a standard house margarita is $18. And instead of just signing the bill and handing it to him and just not thinking about it, I saw that my other tequila-based drink was only $12. And I'm like, what kind of, is that like the house margarita? And he goes, no, that's the top shelf. That's the one you want. And I was like, no, I believe that I asked you for just a margarita, just a regular margarita. I was a bartender. If somebody asked for a margarita, or somebody asked for tequila soda, or somebody asked for a vodka Red Bull, whatever it is, you ask, what kind of vodka would you like? What kind of tequila would you like? I wouldn't automatically make them a Cadillac margarita with like Patron and Grand Marnier, if I said that correctly. So the fact that they're getting auto gratuity means that they know if they automatically upsell you, and it's a resort, so generally people don't ask a lot of questions, they're going to get a higher tip. So instead of just taking it, I'm like, no, sir. I didn't ask for top shelf margarita. I just asked for a margarita. You didn't specify, if I wanted Don Julio or Patron. So I just assume, at that point, when a customer asks you for just a margarita, you make a house margarita. And this isn't about the price, this is about the principle. And I said, and he goes, no, that's the one you want. That's the one you want. I've never had a complaint before. Nobody's ever said anything like that before. And I'm like, listen, sir, I know with the auto gratuity, if you just automatically upsell, then you're going to get a higher tip. And so I feel like you're kind of scamming me here because you didn't ask what kind of tequila I wanted in my margarita. As a bartender, you would assume if you don't say anything, you just go house, unless they specify they want something up. And he goes, and he felt bad about it. And then he goes, no, I got you. I understand. I got you. And then he actually he took off the margarita completely and gave it to me for free. But that's just what I'm saying is keep an eye out on those two things. Whenever you go to resorts, probably anywhere at this point, look out for auto gratuity. They include it a lot in hotels and everything like that, but especially at the resorts when people just aren't really paying attention. And also make sure that you specify what kind of drink you want. So if you want a margarita or you want a Bloody Mary, whatever, make sure that you specify the alcohol or you just say house. Because the way that things are going now, people automatically will try to give you the highest, most expensive price things so they can get a bigger tip at the end of the day. And they know that most of the people visiting either aren't going to pay attention or just aren't going to make a stink about it.
Switching gears here, this is about getting scammed at resorts. Here's the setup. You order a margarita. A normal bartender asks what tequila you want, house or premium, but some places automatically use top shelf liquor without asking, then charge you $20 instead of $10. Then they add auto gratuity, so instead of a $12 total, you're suddenly paying $24, double what you expected. And they're counting on you not noticing or not wanting to cause a scene on vacation. Here's my advice. Always specify. Say house margarita or well tequila. Check every bill before you sign. Question charges that look off. You're not being difficult. You're protecting your money. Resorts profit off silence. If they get defensive when you question something, that tells you everything. Your vacation budget matters. Don't let businesses take advantage. Stay sharp.
So that's just something from a Florida native to keep an eye out on. So anyways, happy travels.
So a Republican woman is in shock because she showed up at the hospital in Florida with an ectopic pregnancy and they told her they couldn't help her because of the law, just like we said that they would. So she was so upset she called the governor because of course when you're in the middle of a medical emergency you want to call a politician, but he didn't pick up the phone. And how many women had their governor's number on speed dial? So after several hours of begging and pleading for them to help her like we said they'd make you do, they finally let her end the ectopic pregnancy before her fallopian tubes burst and she lost all ability to reproduce. And yet she's trying to blame this on Democrats. But we said that when you showed up at the hospital, they wouldn't ask you who you voted for or what party you belonged to, and they wouldn't ask you what your interpretation of the bill was. They were just going to go by the law. So her care was delayed. I'm very happy she got the care that she deserved, but it was delayed. And there are other women out there whose care is being delayed. And that is putting their lives at risk and their reproductive health care at risk.
Breaking news, Florida. A grand jury has been summoned for Governor DeSantis' wife's charity, Hope Florida Foundation. What? Yes, this is breaking as I speak. A grand jury has been now summoned by State Attorney Jack Campbell that involves Casey DeSantis, the governor's wife's, her charity, Hope Florida Foundation, potentially the governor's former chief of staff, James Upmeyer, who is now the state attorney general, over $10 million that went to Hope Florida Foundation that was Medicaid money that should have been returned to the state and the federal government, and then it ends up in a political action committee controlled by the governor's chief of staff, James Upmeyer. 8.5 million of it went to him, and this has all been shady. Let's put it that way.
So a grand jury just got summoned for the governor's wife's charity. Let me walk through this. $10 million in Medicaid money that legally should have gone back to state and federal governments, somehow ended up in Casey DeSantis' charity. Then $8.5 million moved into a political action committee, controlled by the governor's former chief of staff, who's now the state attorney general. This is corruption in broad daylight, and this is the same administration that campaigned on draining the swamp. But here's the pattern. They scream about government waste, then do it themselves. They assume no one will notice. Wrong. Stealing Medicaid money to fund political operations is a crime. Period. This is money meant for health care for poor people. Instead, it's funding attack ads. Floridians voted for this. They elected the people now under criminal investigation. When those indictments come down, remember, this is what you voted for.
The Treasury Secretary just admitted the shutdown is costing the U.S. economy $15 billion every single day. $15 billion to do nothing. And while American paychecks freeze and agencies close, the same administration approved a $40 billion bailout for Argentina's economy. Fiscal restraint apparently expires at customs. The deal was architected by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a former hedge fund manager who once specialized in the same emerging market debt that's now being rescued. So taxpayers are footing the bill for his old playground while our own government can't stay open. That's not sound economics, it's selective empathy, compassion for markets, austerity for citizens. And it works because outrage burns faster than interest compounds. And when they say we can't afford to feed the poor, remember, we're spending $15 billion a day to stand still and $40 billion to help someone else run.
Wait, let me make sure I have this right. The government is shut down, costing the economy $15 billion per day. American paychecks frozen, agencies closed. But the same administration just approved a $40 billion bailout for Argentina. And who approved it? Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, former hedge fund manager specializing in emerging market debt, the exact type of debt he just bailed out. So American taxpayers are funding his old investment playground while our government can't keep the lights on. This isn't fiscal responsibility. This is selective economics, compassion for markets, austerity for citizens. Meanwhile, Americans can't get tax returns. Benefits are delayed. Nothing functions. Because your tax dollars are in Argentina right now. This is what happens when you elect billionaires and hedge fund managers. They protect their portfolios, not your paychecks.
Hey, Douglas, let's check and see what's going on around the state of Florida today.
Yeah. Nothing too crazy, I'm sure.
Something happening out there in Florida, I'm sure, today. Let's check it out.
Authorities have confirmed that 89-year-old Whispering Pines Retirement Village resident Irv Smalls in Orlando, Florida. Whispering Pines is a retirement village in Orlando. Somehow, Irv, authorities have now confirmed, wandered out of the retirement village into a waiting Uber, and then ended up at the Orlando, Florida aquarium, where he started telling aquarium guests that he was a docent, a tour guide, and then Irv started to give tours to the aquarium guests, tours of the aquarium, which contained wildly inaccurate and unfactual information. Witnesses say Irv led a group of tourists confidently through the exhibits while giving what staff later described as a creative interpretation of marine life. After leading his group to the jellyfish tank, Irv explained that the jellyfish are actually called ocean raisins, and the reason they glow is because they're embarrassed. Irv then led his tour group to the shark tank and picked out a shark and pointed at the shark and said, "This one's name is Brenda. She's recently divorced, but she's doing great." At one point, Irv leaned into the crowd and said, "You see these penguins over here? They are part of the Navy's cold water division. You can tell by their posture." When confronted by security, Irv explained that he was brought in to replace the regular tour guide who had been eaten by a grouper. Back at Whispering Pines staff confirmed that Irv had returned to the retirement village on his own, carrying a framed photo of himself along with a certificate. And then he said, once he entered the lobby of Whispering Pines, "Good news, everyone. I've been promoted to head marine biologist."
Okay, that's enough of that. For everything Palm and Pine, be sure to go to our website, palmandpine.net. Palmandpine.net. See you there.
All right, we'll see y'all. Keep it Florida.
So where does this leave Florida? In free fall. Tourism tanking, housing crashing, businesses empty, corruption investigations, medical emergencies becoming legal nightmares, and the people who voted for this still confused. It happened because ideology beat economics, fear beat facts, culture wars beat common sense. Look, Florida can turn this around. Stop attacking the people who spend money here. Stop making the state synonymous with hostility. Start welcoming people again. All people. That's how tourism works. That's how economies work. But until then, Florida keeps bleeding money. Economics isn't political. It's arithmetic. Drop a comment. Can Florida recover? Or is this just the beginning? Hit that like button, share this, and subscribe. This is Mind Mirror. See you in the next one.